When we tested the new V10 from young Polish company Virtue, there was a lot to recommend it. This is that boat, and as you can see, it's a particularly striking piece of work with that plumb bow and that peat step hull. Open configuration with the T-top, quite premium in a lot of ways. Well, they followed that original V10 up with a boat that's designed to add a little bit of extra utility, some extra sleeping capacity and some extra year-round boating potential, and this is it. This is the all-new Virtue V10 Cabin. Now, as you can see, there's certainly a lot of consistency here. That same elegant plumb bow, that same fine entry, the same peat step hull. We'll have a closer look at that right now because that in itself is quite an interesting feature. Now, as you can see, the spray rails here are particularly pronounced and downward pointing. The idea is that they don't fling the spray sideways, they fling the spray downwards. The principle being that they then provide a cushion of water, increase efficiency, soften up the ride, get extra pace. And the reports we're getting from them are very positive as regards its performance. But if we move round toward the back end, you'll see there are other similarities. Now, that is the original V10 next door there. And as you can see, we have the same fold-down terraces, one on either side as that original boat. They come as standard, but it's pretty much a custom boat building company. So if you don't want those fold-down terraces, if you want a continuous hull side, they can absolutely do that for you. And the same goes for the various elements of layout that we're about to look at here. It's not a difficult boat to tweak at all. In any case, what we have on the Transom here is a pair of 300 horsepower outboards. That's the maximum rig you can go with. You can go with a single 400, twin 200s, maximum of 600 horsepower. With the basic 400, you get about 40 knots out of it. Apparently, with these twin 200s, it should be good for around about 55 knots, so that's really quite something. We still get some lovely long swim platforms extended on either side, so there's plenty of ease of access there. And when we get on board into the cockpit, well, as you can see, it lacks the forward bench that the original V10 had. All we have is this aft bench facing forward, but as you can see, that will fold down to create a sun pad of sorts. We also have a pair of slide-in doors on the back end of that superstructure. Well, at the moment, this being the prototype, they only open to starboard, and I'd like it if they open to port as well, because then you have the potential to reverse this dinette seat to face out and kind of integrate these spaces, become a bit more sociable in terms of what can go on back here. But what's particularly interesting in this part of the boat is the fact that we essentially have two different deck layouts. We have a walk-around configuration forward, and then in order to get further aft, you have to funnel inwards and come out through the back end of that superstructure. So that's a very interesting thing indeed. But I've had a little walk around here, and I'll do the same again now. If you were single-handed helming, it's not a difficult thing to do because you've got a door on both sides, sliding doors, easy access out onto these tapering side decks. As I say, they're curtailed at the back end to maximise the width at the back end of that saloon. But look, we've got grab rails, we've got cleats with an easy reach. It's not a problem at all, and they're relatively deep set as well, so it's very secure too. We'll pop out there now, head up that step and move forward towards the bow, because this section is basically the same as the old V10, and it's no bad thing at all. We could do with some drain holes in those stainless steel cup holders, but this is a really comfortable spot. A permanent backrest here, very comfortable for a couple of people, 3 at a push. It'd be quite nice to see some armrests integrated into that as well, just for some extra lateral support, a bit more security. And of course, as you'd expect, the anchor is tucked out of sight to make things extra pretty. If you look across to that V10, you'll see no anchor at all. We've just got a little panel that shifts off that stem, enabling the anchor to project forward and down without damaging the fiberglass of that lovely bow. Let's close that back up and spin ourselves around again, because we have the same caliber of steelwork, sunken cleats of course. We have grab rails kind of recessed into little troughs built into those gunnels. It's a very attractive fit out, I have to say. We've got a single piece screen. And actually I'm quite excited about the fact that we got a superstructure here at all, because on the original V10, I seem to recall that when I tested it, I struggled to get much in the way of protection from that screen, whether I was standing or sitting. So this promises to ramp that up in quite a significant way. And let's step in at the starboard side We'll have a look at the helm in a second. First, we'll just have a little look at this dinette on the starboard side, because the principle is, of course, that you can open up this table, use it as a proper dining station. We've got a forward-facing bench there, and the helm bench, well, that reverses to face aft and drops down on electrically operated struts. So you've got easy space there, they say, for 2 facing aft, 2 facing forward. But I've sat in that spot, and I reckon you could easily sit 6 people at that station. So it's particularly generous. And if I spin around and look at the beamiest point in this saloon, well, this is a really wide walkway. So you've also got the option of some units here. You can have a pantry with a sink and a fridge and a hob. You can have a storage unit, or you can have an additional seat facing across to these guys. So seating potentially for up to 7. Now, as you can see, while we're looking back here, it's very noticeable that the deck level in here is significantly sunken compared to the deck level externally in that cockpit, and that's very deliberate. It's dropped by about 20 centimetres, just to give you extra standing headroom in here without unnaturally elevating that profile and making it look a bit ungainly or awkward. Now, of course, that's forced the designers to kind of rearrange a couple of other things. I mentioned the tank beneath this deck, and that's exactly where it remains. But instead of the squared off tank that they have in the original V10, they've got a V shape of tank that actually drops lower down into the hull and occupies the space more fully. So actually that drops the weight into a particularly useful zone, drops the centre of gravity a little lower. And that's an interesting thing to talk about as well, because when you look at that boat and then you look at this one with its substantial topsides, you think, well, it's fine, isn't it? It's a good idea in principle, but what about all the extra weight? Well, actually, this boat is only 200 kilos heavier than the original V10, because it doesn't have that bench, it doesn't have that wet bar, and it doesn't have those big struts. More to the point, the roof structure here, well, that's vacuum infused, so the entire thing only weighs about 160 kilos, including that optional Webasto sunroof. So they tell me that in terms of weight and weight distribution and handling, it should be at least as good as that original V10. Now, of course, lots of straight line speed and high performance handling is of no great use if you don't have the ergonomics at the helm to take advantage of that, but we definitely seem to have that here. As I say, the helm seats, they'll go up and down to a very, very substantial degree. We've also got an adjustable steering wheel, and the seats, of course, move fore and aft. And if I move myself into the position where you see we've got a foot brace down below, we also, in spite of quite a lofty dash section, we've got really very decent visibility indeed. Now, I'm told this superstructure, the glass that they used for this superstructure is 8mm tempered glass. They call it crystal grey, and apparently in the sunshine it gives you a little bit of glare protection and gives you quite a cool blue tint. It's nicely done. The mullions are very small, so visibility is very good. And the fact, of course, that we have access to both side decks is very useful indeed, both for seamanship duties and for ventilation. Now, in terms of the dash itself, we've got a load of switchgear here. We've got the thrusters on the left-hand side, a pair of throttles here, and a pair of 12-inch plotters up there on the main tier of the dash. And if we head down to those cabins, you'll see that actually this vertical elevation does pretty good things for the volume and headroom in that starboard heads compartment. So it's not a design idea without a solid practical underpinning. Now, we step down into a kind of atrium with a port cabinet for storage, a bit of switchgear, and the stereo remote. We've also got a little changing seat down there to port, and the bed is also a pretty decent size for a 6-footer. They tell me that they had a guy who was significantly larger than that coming in asking for a bed extension by about 10 centimetres, so they factored that in for him. And although it limits the arc of the door for that heads compartment, it's another illustration of the fact that if you need tweaks, they're very happy to oblige. It is, of course, quite a tapered hull, so it does pinch in towards the bow, but of course you sleep with your head up by these reading lights, and the natural trim of the bed puts your head above the level of your feet, so that ought to make it nice and comfortable for a night's sleep. As you can also see, though, we have the infills for that convertible berth up in the saloon down here. There's really nowhere sensible to stow them. I guess we could chuck them in the heads compartment, but beneath the bed we do have a storage compartment that's pretty much filled up with the water tank, so that's not entirely practical if you've got baggage for a weekend's cruising. But let's get that out of the way. Enable us to see an additional storage unit just there, and let's open up this door to the heads compartment and take a look at that. Now, as elsewhere on this boat, we've got this lovely Alcantara style lining. It all feels very clean and modern and fresh. It's a very decent size for a boat of this scale, a boat of these proportions. And although we don't have the deck drain fitted, you can use this as a wet room should you want to. That then is the new Virtue V10 Cabin. Now, that is the prototype boat, so there are a few design features that need just finishing off, just finessing, just to maximise the potential of this platform. But given how much more it offers than the original V10, and given how similar they are in terms of their price point, it looks to me like far and away the strongest boat to emerge from the Virtue yard yet.